Hey Ricky, this is Nathan. We were talking about the desk collection on the Primo. We've got the Cobalt. I've got a Bauer, which is a direct Makita clone. Told you I would just measure stuff out for you. So the base on mine is 64.2 millimeters. This is a 65 millimeter mount, and you can see it doesn't squeeze up tight. So if you are in fact just a tiny bit wider than the Makita, which this is supposed to be basically direct clone, then you're going to see a little more gapping right there. So this is actually obviously the one that I sent the link to, or one that I posted the link to, is actually the one that I use. It's probably the third or fourth desk boot, desk collection thing that I've put together, or I've printed out for this. This is not my design. And it works okay. It's not fantastic, but it's the best I've come across so far, which is why I linked it. I'm using actually two different types of mounts. I'm using the original mount that Ryan posts for up here, and then down here is just the desk collection mount. I can't remember if the link has both pieces or not, but I know one of them that I was working with, I was running into clearance issues with this top bearing on both sides, and this was the best solution. Everything's still lined out pretty much correctly. So I didn't have to do any shimming, anything like that. What else? So anyway, your gap here would be a little bit bigger if this is a little bit bigger, but you can see how tight, because I know you mentioned how far it sticks away from the actual core itself. Depending on the head size of that router, and I don't have what to actually compare it to, so I've only got this one, it is fairly tight. In fact, this little lip right here, if you mount it up at not the exact right angle, will actually bind against that bolt head right there. So it's got to be just about perfect. And then the other side, you run into the same issue, but with the cord. So you can see how tight, and you can see how tight, hopefully you can see how tight, but there's very little gap between the body and the bearing itself, so it does have to be in pretty much the exact right position. If the Bauer head is different size, different shape, that may be an issue, and it may not work for you at all. So the size of the body, I think, would be just fine. If you go this route, or something like this, and really any of the desk boots I've come across, you will run into issues right here. Running the dual end stops is a pretty simple fix, but because this sticks out so far, it will go right into that corner, it will go right into this post, and it won't actually zero out unless you set your zero post further this way to give yourself a little bit of extra space, because otherwise you can see how close I am right there. And this is actually raised up a little bit, so the way around it, if you're not paying, or if you're kind of paying attention to it, is actually to make sure that your tool head is up higher, because you will get extra space here before you zero everything out, or before you home it. If it's down, like I said, I think even with where I am sitting, I'm going to, yep, contact right there. So you've got to have it up, and it's trial and error type thing, because I think I homed through 4 times unsuccessfully before I saw what was actually going on. I was just hitting home and then walking away. So mine kicks out a little bit further, and this is actually a pin mount that is one of the remix files on this. I'm using it for laser for aiming, so I kick out a little bit further. But anyway, that is basically how it lays out. Like I said, it is tight for tolerance. If I get the camera in the right spot, it is tight for tolerance no matter what we do. So I can see the concern there. So hopefully you don't have to shim it out, because the screws here are angled in, so shimming is going to be difficult, because if you move this out this way, your bolt angles will not align correctly anymore. So it's going to take a little more creative solution than just shimming. If you leave the mount in, you have to go to a 2-piece upper mount also, because then you could shim out just the body, leaving the mounts in place. But I'm not giving it any thought, because that's not an issue I ran into. But it would potentially take some thought. And that little nut there is supposed to actually be buried in there. Mine kicks out a little bit further because I wasn't being real accurate when I did the print, so the nut doesn't fit exactly the way it's supposed to. Same thing on the other side. I just went for speedy prints instead of precise prints, and that's what you got. So it does the job, but I just have to make a little extra allowance because I'm fully printing out again, because I'm in the process right now of planning on tearing this entire thing apart and rebuilding it as a lowrider. So I'm waiting for my linear rails to show up, and then I'll have all the parts, and then my Primo will cease to be. Everything will come out, and I'll start assembling the lowrider, which hopefully will give me better results than the Primo has done. Primo's been okay. It's not been fantastic. I'm hoping the lowrider does better. Otherwise, I'll be looking at building something even different. So anyway, there you go. That's the mount that I was talking about. I dropped my phone.